So good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Romero. I'm the Director of Information Services for the City Parish here in Baton Rouge. Our department is responsible for overseeing the day-to-day operations of our IT and cybersecurity efforts. But the reality is that cybersecurity in today's world is very much a team effort that crosses departments, agencies, and geographies. Cybersecurity has always been a priority for the City Parish, but over the past few years, we've started taking more of a community approach to cybersecurity. We've had more cyber-related discussions and training with our partners in East Baton Rouge Parish, as well as we've begun using social media and presentations like this one to increase the public cyber awareness. If each of us is more cyber aware at home, at school, or at work, then the entire community will become more safe and secure in this digital age. Mayor Broome has made it clear to me and to all of the City Parish departments how important our cybersecurity efforts are in fostering a safer digital environment for our community. And it's through her support that we've been able to make great progress in our cybersecurity planning and investments, but it's work that is by no means complete. Along those lines, I'd like to introduce Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome to share a few words about how much she prioritizes cybersecurity in our efforts here in Baton Rouge. Mayor.
Thank you so much, Eric, and good evening, everyone. First and foremost, I want to thank you for taking time out this evening of your busy schedules to join this conversation in this very important meeting. The interest and participation that is being seen in tonight's workshop underscores the growing importance of our community, and I should say the growing importance that our community is placing on cybersecurity, along with the very real risks we face each day in today's digital age. One of my top priorities over the past few years has revolved around improving our digital infrastructure, services, and security. We have replaced some of our oldest systems used to power some of our most critical and visible services, many of which were more than 20 or 30 years old. We've also launched new web services and platforms, including replacing, and I was so glad about this, our former brla.gov website, also more than 20 years old, with a brand new digital front door to our city parish government in brla.gov. The website includes dozens of services that you once were only able to take advantage of in person or by mail, helping to improve the effectiveness of the services we provide and serve you with efficiency, speed, and convenience. We have also launched numerous programs and platforms during that same time frame to connect you with the data and information you need to make decisions. This includes our award-winning Open Data BR platform, our EBR GIS program, our Open Checkbook application, Open Neighborhood BR, our various social media accounts, including our very active presence on Nextdoor, and the list goes on. As we have navigated this pandemic, the importance of digital services and communication has taken on even greater levels of importance, as evidenced by the virtual event we're holding this evening. But unfortunately, as we have made these tremendous strides in serving our community through digital platforms and innovation, we have also had to take account the rise of cyber crime and bad actors who want to steal our data, shut down our systems, and wreak havoc on our community. Thankfully, we have a number of experts on our team at the City Parish who are constantly working to protect our systems and digital operations, but our work is never complete. Cyber criminals are constantly adapting what they do, the tactics they use to infiltrate email accounts and systems, and how they communicate to gain access to our bank accounts, personal information, data, and more. If anyone participating in tonight's event has ever been hacked or your data compromised, then you understand what I'm talking about. And I'm confident you would agree that this is an experience that nobody wants to go through. The good news is that there are easy and simple steps we can each take daily to protect our accounts, information, data, and much more. This builds on a symposium we hosted earlier today with partners and public agencies throughout Louisiana, where the discussion on how to take the same approach with our government systems and data occurred. When it comes to digital safety and security, it's important to recognize that we're all in this together. And the more we can each do to protect our own data, build good cyber habits, and share the information with our friends and neighbors, the safer our digital community will be. Thanks again for taking the time out to be with us tonight, and special thanks to our guest presenters for joining us. I look forward to the outcomes of tonight's discussion and working with all our citizens to build a safer and more secure digital Baton Rouge for years to come.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, thank you for supporting our efforts to make Baton Rouge more cyber resilient. So before we begin with our speakers tonight, just a little bit of a few housekeeping items. So you can participate in today's event by using the WebEx chat and raise hand feature. To enable these, be sure to have participants in chat turned on in WebEx. These can be found at the bottom right corner of WebEx and will have the blue text. The text will be blue when enabled, as seen in the screenshot here. Use the chat feature to send comments or questions during the presentations. You can also use the chat feature if you're experiencing any difficulties. Be sure to choose "To Everyone" as indicated on the slide. If you wish to ask a question during the presenter's question and answer period, use the raise hand feature. You will be unmuted so that you can verbally ask your question. Please remember to lower your hand after you've asked your question. The screenshot shows what button to click to raise your hand. With that, start with our first presenter. So our first presenter tonight is John Morello, who serves as the Vice President Product for Container and Serverless Security at Palo Alto Networks. John was the Chief Technology Officer of TwistLock and helped take the company from 0 to over 400 customers. As CTO, John led the product marketing, sales engineering, and customer success functions. He has multiple container security patents issued. Prior to TwistLock, John was the Chief Information Security Officer for a Fortune 500 global chemical company, and before that, he spent 14 years at Microsoft, leading several security projects at the White House. Tonight, he'll give an overview of some of the basics we can do to be better protected from cyber threats. John?
Thank you, Eric. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen out now, and we'll start the presentation. So I've tried to focus this session really to talk about cyber from the standpoint of the regular everyday citizen, not all the sort of enterprise level things that we built as TwistLock, that I built today with Palo Alto Networks at Microsoft and so forth, but really to focus on like what you need to think about as an individual person. What are the biggest risks to you, and more importantly, what are the things that you can do about it? I could go through an entire deck of all kinds of slides of things that are really scary and make you feel overwhelmed with the state of cybersecurity and your ability to protect yourself and to operate in the digital world that we all live in today. But the reality is that there actually are some things you can do that are relatively easy. Most of them are completely free. They can really take you to a much better state than most people are at from a security standpoint. And that's what we're going to focus the discussion on tonight is what are those things that you really can achieve that you could, after the end of this session, go and spend 20 minutes working on and really get yourself and your family into a better posture than they're at today. But the first place I usually start off is just to highlight a couple of facts here. I think everybody knows that there's malware and spam email and phishing and all the other kind of bad things that you've encountered over the past 20 plus years now. I mean, really since the beginning of individuals using the internet and using computers, I guess, for that matter, there's always been some kind of, malicious actors out there that were looking to do some kind of harm to you or to the organization that you worked at. And that hasn't changed. But one thing that really has changed over the past 5 to 10 years is the ease at which those actions can be monetized by the attacker. In the past, a lot of the things that would be problematic for you as an individual would really be done, kind of like for sick enjoyment, so to speak, of the attacker. They wanted you to get a virus just because they wanted to see if they could do it. They wanted to, to deface a website just to make some kind of statement, but there wasn't a monetary gain involved with it. And so the population of people who were focused on doing that work was relatively small and narrow. It was people that actually, were interested in just seeing what it was like or seeing what the impact of their activities were, versus people who were really looking to try to make money off of the situation. As you can imagine, like in any aspect of life, once you introduce monetary incentives to it, the game changes entirely. You get an entirely new class of actors and, an entirely heightened level of interest in utilizing those same kinds of techniques because it's now easier to monetize them. So what does that mean to monetize them? What are the things that are really happening here? There's a few different ways that attackers are going about that. One of them is there is a large underground economy. You may have heard of something called the dark web, but it's basically just a set of websites that kind of exist in the periphery of the internet, so to speak, that are designed to allow people to traffic in stolen digital goods. And those stolen digital goods primarily is financially usable, personally identifiable information, namely credit card information, some bank accounts, social security numbers, things of that nature. What you can see on the slide here is literally a screenshot from one of those dark web sites where you can see how that stuff is bundled up. So if you're an attacker and you go out and you compromise through many different mechanisms that you could, people's credit card information, it's not a matter of you as the person who compromised it, trying to, go to Amazon or something and spend the money directly. That'd be kind of a foolish and a less scalable way of doing it. Instead, those attackers will bundle together the credit card details of many people. You can see here, it's lots of 20 or lots of 100 or whatever of these credit card numbers, and they're actually priced as economies tend to do, based on their value. So credit card numbers that are from U.S. addresses that have expiration dates a long time in the future that were only recently discovered have a lot higher value than credit card information that might be stale, or the person who was compromised might already be aware of it and have canceled that card. But the key thing to think about is that there's an entire economy around doing this. So it's not about, some individual bad guy sitting in their mom's basement that, somehow gets your credit card information and goes and orders an Xbox because of it. It's really groups of organized crime, oftentimes operating out of Eastern Europe and Asia, who collect this information and then sell it at a profit on these dark websites. So the person who ultimately, uses your card to enrich themselves and to steal from you is very rarely the person who actually, perpetrated the theft in the first place. The way I often think about this is that the advantages for the attackers are all on the advantages in the system are all for the attackers, in the sense that you as the individual, it's relatively hard for you to protect yourself. That you're not in most cases going to be a domain expert in the technology. You're going to have to go through and know what buttons to press and what things to turn on and so forth. And you've got your own data, and you're still utilizing that data and your own personal work to be able to just conduct life. To buy things on Amazon, to as the mayor was talking about, to be able to conduct services with the city parish. Whereas the attackers have the advantage of being domain expertise in many ways, or at least being able to hire it, for it to be a very low risk sort of situation. If you're somebody operating out of some, Eastern European country, in some place that may not have extradition agreements with the United States or have much of a law enforcement presence in general, the chances of you being arrested because you compromised somebody half a world away are extremely low. It's also something that's easily automatable. So in many cases, the kinds of attacks that you're seeing are not even being perpetrated directly by humans, but instead by software that some human wrote. And so again, all those attackers have all these advantages, and so it's really up to you to take the precautions that we'll talk about to protect yourself. And the final thing we'll talk about is that the loop between the attacker compromising your system or your, whatever it is, your account, and them being able to monetize that has grown very small now, because not only do you have this dark web situation and the ability to monetize that, but if you've heard of ransomware, which is a very common sort of attack against individuals in which somebody basically encrypts all of your data and forces you to pay to get that data decrypted and get access back to it again. In the case of ransomware, they're able to go from having compromised your system to having you directly pay them in Bitcoin, with virtually no friction and without any real traceability. So again, the key thing to think about, the key difference about security for your personal data and personal devices today versus just 5 or 10 years ago is that it's now much easier and thus much more likely for it to be driven by monetization, by enrichment of the attacker, by truly organized crime, than it was, again, 10 years ago when it was mostly done for individuals' amusement or just to make a statement of somehow. And again, that fact that it's being done now by a criminal syndicate, by a group of people who are looking to make money, really drives a greater level of risk, because there's a much more great incentive for them to do so. So one of the other things that I always like to talk about with people when we go through this discussion is you can read about all kinds of crazy security technologies and things that you can buy, and everybody wants to sell you their services and products and technologies and firewalls and all kinds of things that are out there. And it's not to say that those things aren't useful, but the reality for most people is you're far more likely to be compromised based on some old existing known vulnerability that's been fixed by the device manufacturer or the operating system manufacturer, possibly months or even years ago, that's just not been patched, that you just haven't installed the update for, or that you happen to click on a link, and that link asks you to install some kind of toolbar that's going to show you a dancing pig movie or something that you really like to see. And so you click yes to it, and suddenly you're running their attacker software on your laptop or on whatever computer you're talking about there. So it's, when we think about computer security for most individuals, there's a huge number of really sophisticated attacks that could theoretically happen, but a relatively small number of fairly low sophisticated attacks that actually do happen for most people. And so what I want to talk to you about is what are the things that we can do, everybody can do, again, freely or very cheaply at least, to help protect yourselves against those really common attacks that you're likely to see and experience yourself personally. So we're going to go through 5 things that I recommend to anybody, any citizen, anybody that works in this and lives in this digital world that we all exist in these days. The number one thing is just to make sure your devices stay up to date. When I say devices, I don't mean just like the hardware updates for them, but the operating systems that are on there as well, the applications that you run on those devices as well. So this isn't just purely something for your desktop computers. Your phones all run software. These days, lots of other things run software that you might not even be thinking about. Your television, your car in a lot of cases. And while those are emerging threats, the ability for you to control and to protect yourself is really pretty powerful and extensive for those devices that are designed for you as a kind of general purpose end user computing platform. So your phone, be that running iOS or Android, your computer, your laptop or desktop, whether it's Windows or Mac OS, they all have this capability to keep their software up to date automatically. You may have seen this before. You may already have it turned on. Most modern operating systems and devices come with it on by default. But it's something that's really worth checking, particularly if you have an older operating system, maybe an older device that you've been using for a few years, or perhaps somebody may have even disabled this. Sometimes people turn off these automatic updates because they don't like to be bothered by, their computer telling them that they need to restart it to install an update. And I can understand that certainly can be frustrating, but it also provides you with a really significant amount of protection against, again, those really common kinds of attacks that people automate and run at scale that are just exploiting very well-known vulnerabilities and very commonly used software stacks. So the number one thing that you should do is just make sure that your phones, your laptops, any other devices or software that you use that are capable of checking for updates automatically and installing those updates automatically, that's actually enabled. And like I said, in a lot of cases, things that have come out in the past year or two, or sometimes even a little bit longer, support that and actually have that turned on by default, but it's worth checking. So if you go and look for the instructions for your individual phone or computer or operating system, it's usually a pretty easy thing to find. Most of the manufacturers really want customers to do that because they know that it increases the safety of their customer base. The next thing that I often recommend to people is to utilize some kind of password manager. If you think about the variety of sites and services and applications that you use, whether you realize it or not, there's probably a pretty good chance that you're interacting with tens or even hundreds of different sites and services in a given year. Sometimes, tens of sites and services just in a given day for that matter. And while it's certainly, theoretically possible for you to choose a good password for each of those that's unique across them, realistically, it's not something that anybody really is capable of doing. You're not going to be able to select good, strong, unique passwords for every site and keep them, just solely in your mind. And so there's a variety of technologies that are all kind of part of this family of applications called password managers, which are designed to effectively do two things. One is to generate very strong, unique passwords on demand. And two is to store safely a database of those that you can access from your phone, from your laptop, and that can automatically plug those into the authentication forms in your applications and your websites, so that instead of you having to remember hundreds or at least dozens of different credentials to different sites, you really only have to remember one to your password manager, so you can make it a really good one. And then that password manager encrypts and safely stores all the other ones to all the various other sites that then allow you to log into those other sites. And one of the reasons why this is so important is, even if you're doing everything right from a digital cyber standpoint, you can still end up being very significantly victimized if you utilize the same credentials across many different sites and just one of those sites is compromised. Think about how many websites utilize your email address as the logon ID. And so you already know, half of the authentication for almost any website these days. And then the other half, if you're utilizing a password that's shared across other sites, if one of those other sites is compromised, now the attacker has a very easy way to go and do what's called grinding and basically automatically try that combination of username and password against pretty much any other site that's out there. And we talked earlier about the dark web and the ability for people to transact and to sell those kinds of digital goods. Those stolen credentials are one of the most commonly stolen and sold things on the dark web. So utilizing that password manager limits the scope of that compromise. If one of the sites that you use is attacked and somehow the attacker is able to conquer it and steal the credentials from it, then you at least know that the only thing that you're impacted on is that one particular site. And if it's your credit card site, for example, it can't be used then to exploit your bank account site and vice versa. So limiting the scope of the compromise by utilizing these password managers is a really strong part of your overall personal security strategy. There's a lot of them out there. A lot of the operating systems like iOS have them built in. Many browsers have them built in. There's some commercial ones like LastPass and 1Password. They're out there and available as well. There's different strengths and weaknesses, and you can try multiple ones if you like. But the core thing is really that you're just using one of them. It's not so much that there's one that's better or more secure than the others. In general, all of the major ones, and certainly the ones built into the operating systems, are pretty solid and reliable and very safe from a security standpoint. The third of our 5 is to utilize multi-factor authentication. Much like we just talked about with passwords, it can be very easy for an attacker who can compromise one site to abuse that compromise and kind of spread what they're able to do into multiple other places if you reuse credentials there. One of the best things that you can do to protect against that, in addition to utilizing a password manager, is to utilize multi-factor authentication for your applications. Multi-factor authentication can come in a variety of forms. A lot of them used to utilize these tokens that you might have seen people use called secure ID tokens, where it would temporarily show a 6-digit number that you would type in, and that number changed every minute. You've seen there's some that are out there that utilize text-based messaging, so that they text you a code to use. It's only usable for a short period. And others, and really the best implementation, utilize an app that runs on your phone. And every time you open that app, it's going to give you a different code to utilize to log on to the website. And MFA is a really important part of securing yourself because it helps make sure that even if your device, like let's say your computer is compromised or your password to a given service or account is compromised, it provides still a very significant barrier for the attacker to then be able to go and utilize those credentials elsewhere, because they don't just have a password that's a static thing that they have to utilize elsewhere, but instead there's this ever-changing dynamic code that has to be added to that password. And that dynamic code exists on a different physical device, on a different app, on your phone versus your laptop, for example, which really provides a strong barrier to protect against that being compromised by whomever may have compromised the original account. So there's lots of different tools out there that do this. Lots of different websites and services enable it. I usually recommend, in fact, always recommend the app-based approach to doing multi-factor authentication versus text-based messaging, because one of the challenges is that in at least more sophisticated attacks, you've even seen recently where attackers will convince the phone company to port your phone number to a device that they control, and thus they can receive the text messages. It's probably something that's much more for a targeted kind of attack against a political leader or journalist or something, or maybe just somebody who's known to have a very high level of privilege within their organization. But it certainly could still happen to you as an individual. And utilizing the app-based approach really doesn't have any downsides, and it has a significantly stronger security posture than using text-based approaches. Unfortunately, not every single website and service that's out there utilizes this, but typically those that are of high value, your credit cards, your bank accounts, and so forth, do offer this. And wherever possible, you should opt into it and utilize it. The next one may seem a little bit counterintuitive, or you might question, well, what does this have to do with cloud security, which is or cybersecurity, which is to utilize cloud-based storage. One of the benefits of utilizing cloud-based storage as opposed to storing everything, on your laptop or on your phone or on your desktop only is when you utilize cloud storage providers, you have resiliency from not just the physical loss or destruction of that device. You have a flood, or your phone is lost somehow, but also it protects you against that ransomware scenario where somehow you let your guard down and you click on something that you may not have intended to, and suddenly you're running the attacker's software and it starts encrypting your laptop. Cloud storage gives you a way to actually kind of go back in time with a copy of that data before it was encrypted and restore that point in time back to something that was safe and usable. So utilizing a cloud storage provider makes it easier for you to be resilient in the case of something else failing and you actually getting that ransomware sort of situation, or the device being lost or destroyed in some way. It really enables you to be able to survive those situations and to not lose your data or not have to pay somebody a ransom to get access to that data again. So there's a lot of different cloud providers out there that offer storage. In general, almost any of them can be used for this scenario. But one that's done a really good job of implementing that, I think, with a good user experience for it, is Microsoft's OneDrive service. With OneDrive, it actually can detect when it believes that ransomware has occurred, because it can see that all the files that are stored on it are being attempted to be encrypted. And then it'll send you that notification that you can see in that screenshot there to a different device, to your phone, and ask you, do you want to prevent this and roll back to a safe version? So, like I said, you could do this with iCloud or Google Cloud Storage and others, but it requires more manual effort and management, whereas the OneDrive approach does a really good job with it. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to store every single file there. Most of these providers have some kind of free tier, so if you perhaps just want to store the things that are of most highest value to you, that may be a way to do it and not have any cost. But typically the costs are quite low for these things, and for most people, at least for me, a few dollars a month is certainly a worthwhile cost to pay, just to know that I've got some defense in depth in case that data is lost or my device is stolen or something along those lines. And the final thing I'll talk about is just the importance of only running software that you really genuinely trust, software from legitimate providers. Because all those things that we talked about earlier about, utilizing password manager and good practices for the way that you secure your data and so forth, all of that can be very easily subverted, unfortunately, if you run software from somebody who's got malicious intent, who's got some kind of spyware or ransomware or something like that. If you intentionally run that software, you kind of put them behind the wall, so to speak. You build all these all these moats around yourself with password managers and, keeping your operating system up to date and so forth. But if you put something, that software, that you decide to opt in and to run, you kind of put it behind all those moats. And it's possible now for somebody to really be able to still exploit a lot of the things that you try to protect against, because they're already running their software on your system. Unfortunately, this is one of the things that historically people have struggled with the most. There's a screenshot here, if you guys remember, from maybe 15 years ago. It was very common for people to install browser toolbars. It started out as a good thing to make it easier to do searching, and then eventually, like, bad guys figured out it was a good way to get spyware implanted on people's computers. And so you could, see people that had, a dozen toolbars installed on their machine. Unfortunately, the situation is not dramatically better today. There's still lots of software out there that tries to trick you to installing it, that makes promises about making your life easier, but it's actually there to try to suck your data off and send it out to some Chinese data warehouse to do, really who knows what with, or it's going to eventually encrypt your laptop, or it's going to bombard you with advertisements. None of that software is going to be honest about what it does up front. It's going to try to tell you that it's going to be something that's going to accelerate your web experience, or unfortunately, in many cases, tell you it's security software that's going to clean your machine or clean your phone from spyware, but actually it itself is spyware. The best thing that I recommend to people with this is that wherever possible, to really try to rely on the application store, the app store from your operating system. Even that's not always enough, particularly on Android, where there's lots of different app stores from each one of the OEMs, and the gating process to get in them isn't particularly strong. But on iOS, it's actually a pretty good, reliable way to say that if I install something on the iOS app store, that I know that it's not going to be doing something malicious on my iOS device. On Microsoft platforms, on Windows, you've got the Windows App Store to install applications. It doesn't necessarily just have to be through that. If you're buying software from a reputable provider, like, let's say Adobe or something, there's nothing wrong with you using it outside an app store, but it just makes it harder to kind of vouch for the authenticity and the intent of that software for most normal people who are, kind of industry insiders and work in this space. One thing to be particularly cautious about too is, as more and more stuff has gone to the browser, so too have the attackers gone to try to attack it at that level as well. So you started to see a lot more situations where, browser app stores like the Chrome Web Store, for example, have all kinds of really useful plugins, including password managers like we just talked about, but all kinds of malicious stuff too that's very hard to discern whether it's something that's good or bad, or, something you should really trust. In general, I tell people, like, the less software that you install on your machines, typically the better. The more stuff that you can just simply access via your browser, the less the risk there is to you of it. It certainly doesn't make for a perfect situation or an absolute guarantee, but it's certainly better to do that than it is to kind of go and install random things that, people link you to do a download and to install something, or, install some dodgy looking extension just because it promises to change your wallpaper every day. Those are the things that really represent kind of the highest level of risk to most people. So just to summarize, like we talked about, the world is a dangerous place these days, even more so now because there's a really easy ability and quick ability for attackers to monetize their work and to be able to convert their compromise of you and your data into money. And so there's a few things that we can all do as citizens to make that easier. Keep your operating system up to date. Utilize a password manager, use multi-factor authentication where you can, make sure that your data is backed up to a cloud storage provider, and then finally to only install software that you trust from trusted providers. So hopefully that helps everybody feel like there's some real hope. There's some things that you can really do and make a meaningful impact on this, and be able to really have a safer way to proceed in this digital world that we all live in. So with that, Eric, I'll turn it back to you. Thanks.
Thank you, John. That's good information that we can use to protect our devices and information. So again, feel free to submit any questions in the chat window, or use the raise hand feature if you wish to ask John a question on anything he covered. All right, John, we have a question in the chat window. Does face recognition on accounts provide extra protection and security?
It's good. Yeah, it's actually a good question. So Face ID, Touch ID are basically just different forms of multi-factor authentication to the device. So much of the same things that we talked about for multi-factor authentication and why that's valuable, it's equally applicable to what you do with Face ID or Touch ID. So certainly if you have applications that support that, it's a great thing to opt into.
Anybody else have anything? If not, we will move on. Thank you again, John.
Thanks a lot, Eric.
Our next presenter is Dr. Yasser Benedaki, who will share some thoughts on what parents and guardians need to be aware of as our children interact with technology at an ever younger age. Dr. Benedaki is an assistant professor of the Department of Computer Science at Southern University. He has a distinguished record of excellence in academic teaching and research activities in cybersecurity, including several publications on network intrusion detections using artificial intelligence. Dr. Benedaki is also the project director of Cybersecurity Summer Camp at Southern University, known as Gen Cyber Youth Camp. Dr. Benedaki?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Thank you so much for the introduction, Eric. Good evening, everyone. My presentation focuses on some simple cybersecurity rules to keep our kids and youth safe. Also, some cybersecurity points for adults. I will also talk about the Southern University contribution to cybersecurity awareness. So the first question is why cybersecurity should be top priority for everyone. As business is increasingly conducted through online interaction and digital exchange of data and information, the importance of cybersecurity for everyone grows by actually every minute. So basically 93% of children use a tablet, computer, or phone, cell phone. 8 out of 10 teenagers have a computer, cell phone, or game console. 28% of parents who use the internet describe themselves as a beginner. In comparison, only 7% of children have this description. And so at the same time, there is a report that 30% of students receive no lessons at all on using the internet with respect to cybersecurity and personal data protection. By looking at official report, there are about 1.3 billion financial loss from cyber crimes in the United States every year. So here are a few simple cybersecurity rules to keep our kids and youth safe. The basic rule is to increase the awareness about cyber threats. For example, don't install apps without permission. Stop unsigned app installing from unauthorized sources, and stop automatic updates in Android. They are both so are not the safe practice. And another simple cybersecurity rules to keep our kids and youth safe is based on teach our kids how to protect their identity. For example, how to create unique password, like not using name in a passport, not sharing password with anyone beside family members, not posting any pictures online containing personal information, avoid posting a full frontal picture of yourself on social media sites, because one can create a photo ID to steal your identity. And many other simple rules that you need to keep in mind to protect your kids' identity. And another point to keep our kids safe is use kid-friendly search engines. like three examples here: Kiddle, KidRex, and Safe Search Kits. And check privacy setting in the devices used by your kids. This is also a very important point. If you need to give your kids a cell phone for safety purpose, buy one geared for kids. Set web browser to block any pop-up and disable JavaScript, Java software on the browser. Cyberbullying is another kind of cyber harassment in online environment. So it's a form of bullying or harassment using electronic devices. To prevent cyberbullying, create an email account for your child if necessary and monitor the message they get on their devices. For young kids, keep online browsing in common family areas where you can see what the kids are doing. Also, teach kids that internet is not a safe place because any computer can be an easy target for cyber criminals. Maybe you are only one click away from losing your identification to cyber criminals. For example, clicking on a link or download an app that may lead to a phishing website or the downloading and malware. So they are all examples that can happen in every browsing. For example, unsafe websites that do not have a security certificate should be avoided. So look at, for example, the address of the website. If it has HTTPS at the start of the URL, that S indicates that the information is encrypted. Encrypted, that means so more secure than HTTP. Or an email from an unknown source should not be opened because that can be a source of phishing. And for example, they can hack your email address. So an antivirus software needs to be installed to protect your computer against malware and cyber criminals. Any antivirus software can identify and block many viruses and malwares, including some of the advanced attacks. So before they can be infect your computer, they can be detected. Once you install antivirus software, it is important to keep it up to date. Antivirus software scan files on your computer system, on your memory, computer memory, for certain patterns that may indicate the presence of malicious software that we call it malware. Antivirus vendors find new and updated malware daily. So it is important that you have the latest version, latest update installed on your computer. So there are some efforts on a national scale for youth and teachers cybersecurity awareness. One of the national efforts for cybersecurity awareness is Gen Cyber program supported by National Science Foundation and National Security Agency. The Gen Cyber program provides summer cybersecurity camp experiences, cybersecurity experiences basically for both students and teachers at the K-12 level. The goal of the program are to increase the interest in cybersecurity career and also they increase the diversity in the cybersecurity workforce of the nation. So also, the program wants to help all students understand correct and safe online behavior. There's the questions, the information like how they can be good digital citizens and improve teaching skills for teachers, for K-12 teachers in delivering cybersecurity content to the kids. there are at least one cybersecurity summer camp in almost every state every year. So here is the map that is available in this website. And if you go to the website and search for Louisiana, you can find that Southern University last year was awarded to have the first Gen Cyber summer camp in Louisiana. The Southern University Southern Gen Cyber Camp is organized and managed by a team of diverse faculty and student mentors with expertise in cybersecurity. Our team draws inspiration from years of teaching cybersecurity and programming principles to deliver a dynamic and existing camp experience for your for all the K-12 teenage children and also children. So Southern Gen Cyber Camp is a free 5-day camp. A student learn about the existing world of cybersecurity. Each day, campers participate in many hands-on computer activities to learn about different cybersecurity topics. Middle school, high school students aged 13 and older are eligible to attend the camp. The students of all backgrounds and skill levels are welcome to join us. The camp is geared for all skill levels and designed to be a place where you can start to learn more about cybersecurity in a supportive and fun environment for our kids. There are a limited number of spots available every year, so we encourage you to register your youth as soon as possible. You can email this email or visit this website, this link. And we basically host every year almost 60 students. And because of the pandemic, last summer we couldn't have any session, but next summer we have another session that you can attend. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Dr. Banadaki. I really like how Southern is reaching out to the school-age youth to start the cybersecurity discussion early. Really like that.
Definitely.
So we have a question. Are free basic antiviral software safe, such as AVG, is basic sufficient?
Let me open the chat. So
yes.
Stop sharing.
So again, our free basic antivirus software is safe, such as AVG. Is the basic solution sufficient?
Yes, basically any antivirus software, they can search for a pattern and they can find any virus or malware on your system. But the AVG also included in that categories. But the important thing is if it's free, you need to check if it can be updated. You can keep updated. Some of the companies basically they have free version for trial version. You can install on your system, and for a while you can use it to search for the malware. And after that, after some trial time, so then you need to pay. Otherwise, it cannot be updated. So the important thing for any antivirus is you need to have the updated version on your system. Otherwise, the new attacks, new kind of malware still is a threat for your system. So any other questions, Rick?
And I'll chime in on that also. Matt, remember that Windows 10, if you have a Windows 10 operating system, it comes with Windows Defender, which is another free antivirus solution right out the box. We have with Defender turned on here, plus another product that's a pay-for product. And I'll kind of reiterate that, is that any antivirus product is better than no antivirus product.
Exactly.
All right. I don't see any other questions, so thank you again, Dr. Benedaki.
You're welcome. I hope it was helpful for all the city community.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to give a hopefully short presentation on cybersecurity in general, but I wanted to start with what we're doing in Baton Rouge as well. But before I get to that, why does it matter? So 60 million Americans affected by identity theft over the past few years. Cost of global crime will be $6 trillion, that's with a T, by 2021. A cyber attack every 39 seconds. The city of Atlanta has experienced $20 million in losses from their March 2018 cyber attack, and they're still trying to recover from that. It's numbers like those that literally cause IT leaders like myself to lose sleep. So what is the City Parish doing here? So we do what most organizations do. We monitor our networks. We apply regular software and system upgrades. We follow best practices. Of course, I can't go into too much detail on exactly what we have in place because that's a security issue. At City Parish, we established a close partnership with our Mayor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness, or MOSEP. MOSEP is a nationally accredited for their emergency management processes and work to prepare for and respond to weather and man-made threats. It made sense for my department, who is strong in technology, to partner with the department who has the experts in dealing with emergency preparedness and response. From there, we began reaching out to all of our City Parish partners. So the other municipalities, Baker, Central, Zachary, the universities, K-12 schools, volunteer organizations, the medical community, utility providers, just to start having a discussion on cyber awareness. Of course, we can't tell everyone how to protect their networks because their networks are completely different than our network. We realize that. But rather, we just want to ensure that they are taking cybersecurity serious and putting the protections in place. A major cyber attack at one of these groups could adversely affect the citizens of this parish. We're also beginning to push out more cybersecurity training to our employees. This year, the state passed legislation, which East Baton Rouge Parish supported at committee level, that every civil servant must take cybersecurity training annually. So this is similar to what we must do currently for ethics and sexual harassment training. Besides requiring annual training, we'll be pushing out more frequent training and even testing users to identify those who may need more specialized training. We're focused on ensuring that we're doing whatever we can to protect the public's assets and data that we manage. Through presentations like these and social media, we're also increasing public cyber awareness throughout the community. At the start of 2020, we began providing cybersecurity presentations to church groups, community centers, homeowners associations. Of course, COVID put a temporary halt to that, but now with the virtual platforms, we believe we'll be able to reach even more groups until we can get back in person. We've also pushed out cyber messaging through our social media platforms. We've seen a lot of positive results in sharing messaging through Nextdoor, which has become the social media platform we can reach the largest number of citizens. I strongly recommend signing up for Nextdoor. It's basically like Facebook for your neighborhood. It's very neighborhood centric. What it allows us to do at City Parish, if we have an issue with, say, the garbage route or there's a sewer issue, we could target which neighborhoods we're sending the message out to. For cybersecurity, we push it out to the entire parish. So what you see on the screen here is the three different platforms we currently use: Twitter, Facebook, and Nextdoor. Basically the same message. Of course, Twitter has a limited character count, so we have to format the message a little bit differently there. So we'll cover, the rest of the presentation is going to cover how to prepare. So we'll cover these topics here. We'll start with phishing. So I love phishing with an F, but I hate phishing with a PH. Phishing is probably the most popular attack vector for a cyber attack, whether they're trying to get some of your personal data or get you to install a malware, ransomware type bug in your system. Phishing is currently the most popular way to do that. So there's a few types of phishing. The email phishing is what we're what we're most familiar with. Those are the emails that come through and try to trick you into clicking a link. Smishing is text message phishing. We're seeing a rise in that where they'll send you a text message with a link with the same concept. You click on it, you go to a website, you give them some information, and now they can do something with that. Phone calls, phishing. So yes, it's not just a computer, it can be on a phone call, so that they'll call you and try to get information. They'll call you and act like it's your bank and try to get your information so they can get into your account. USB baiting is another type of phishing. This is when somebody drops an infected USB drive somewhere, could be in public, could be at a business, with hopes that someone is going to find it, say, hey, I found this new USB drive, let me plug it into my computer and see what I can put on it. And when they plug it into the computer, it drops a virus onto the computer. Now that computer is infected. So ways to avoid being phished. So remember, most legitimate companies are not going to ask for information by email or text. Never give out your personal information to anyone unless you're absolutely sure who they are. Be sure to double check the senders and links within emails. So that's, I'll cover that in just a minute in a little bit more detail. So phishing emails are getting harder and harder to spot. You must be diligent. So back in the day, I'd receive an email from, in quotes, the Nigerian prince who wanted to give me $5 million if I gave him my bank info. Well, it was obvious a phishing or scam attempt. The email was poorly written with broken English. Now that's not the case. These bad guys have gotten good at creating emails with logos from reputable companies that look legitimate. Even if it looks legitimate, treat it as suspect, especially if you're not expecting the email. Are you expecting this email? No, then it's likely a phishing attack, and that's how you should treat it. So the slide also says be wary of .exe attachments. We probably need to update this slide. So the .exes are programs that if you double click on it, it can run on your computer, usually putting some bad stuff on the computer. Well, now be wary of Office attachments and PDFs because there's ways to take advantage of known vulnerabilities and infect your computer with those file types as well. Be careful of any emails that have a sense of urgency. You know, the bad guys use this to make you worry into rushing into a bad decision. So let's take a look at this email here from Amazon.com. But is it really from Amazon.com? So first area at the top, we notice that it's not an Amazon.com email address. It's a misspelled, looks kind of like Amazon, but it's Mazon Canada. So that's one indicator that it may not be from Amazon. Second block in red there, it's generic non-personalized greeting. So if any company is going to reach out to you, they're going to use their database and contact you with probably your first, last name. Say that's still not a 100% guarantee that it's a legit email. Still need to be wary if it's not something you expect. And then the third item there is the link. So the link looks like www.amazon.com, but if you hover your mouse over it, and of course I can't do this in the PowerPoint, but if you hover your mouse over it, you may notice that it'll always show you the actual link behind the link there. And if it's something different, in this case, it's redirect.purjet.com, whatever, we know that that's another indicator that it's a phishing attack or attempt on us. So those are three things that you can quickly look at. Even though the email has the Amazon.com logos, it looks legit, it's still not legit. So passwords, passwords for work, password for home, password for my bank account, pay my electrical bills, et cetera, et cetera. They're a pain to manage, as John mentioned. Oftentimes we don't use difficult passwords because it's harder for us to remember. We see here a few ways that passwords are hacked. Passwords can be hacked just by guessing. They'll have a computer software program that just guesses a bunch of commonly used passwords like numbers or password or just common words or phrases. Spidering is if using information gathered through social media to kind of guess at passwords. So let's say on my social media post, I have that my dog's name is Spot and my cat name is Fluffy. And from that, they can guess that your password is Spot Fluffy. I have neither a dog nor a cat, so just saying don't try to hack my account. Connecting to a public unsecure Wi-Fi is another concern. So in common areas, these bad guys may be connected to the Wi-Fi, and if it's not secure, if you're not using a secure mechanism, they may be connected to the Wi-Fi, looking at your traffic, trying to gain access to your either computer or just looking at the traffic to see if they can gain anything. It may also set up a fake Wi-Fi, so you may be let's just say downtown Baton Rouge, and they set up an access point that's downtown Baton Rouge. You thinking you're connecting to the free Wi-Fi that's downtown, and now you're connected to some guy's Wi-Fi where he has access to your computer and looking at your data. And of course, phishing, which we talked about a little bit ago. So a few tips on passwords. So at least 8 characters, upper and lowercase, numbers, special characters, the longer the better. There's a school of thought now that's moving away from passwords and all the complexity, and as long as it's much more lengthy. So using basically a passphrase now. So 20 to 30 characters. With some sort of phrase, not a common phrase, and ideally something that doesn't make sense to anybody. But something lengthy is now being thought that that's a better approach than upper, lower, special characters and all of that. I think both of them are still adequate now. Again, as John mentioned about the password keepers, password lockers, they help manage all these different passwords that we have. Also, he talked about multi-factor authentication, 2-step verification. So that again is a lot of banks are using this. So you go to log in to the website, and they'll either send you an email or a text on the information that they have on file, and you'll have to provide a code back on the website for you to complete the login process. We use, for some of the applications we have here, we do use the app-based approach, as John mentioned. It basically pings our phone, and then we say accept or decline and lets us through. All right, so here are some of the don'ts of passwords. Don't use old or reused passwords. Don't put personal information for passwords, dictionary words, well-known quotes, well-known phrases or lyrics, or word character alternatives. The biggest don't that isn't on this list is don't write your password on a sticky note, even if you plan on taping it under your keyboard. Trust me, that's still not secure. We still run across that here, and we're still fussing the employees here that do that. All right, moving on to mobile security. So it was hard enough for us to to secure the environment when all we had to worry about were the computers that had a wire attached to them. Now every one of us is walking around with at least one mobile device that probably has a lot of sensitive information about us. You must treat your phone the same way as you treat your computer. You need to keep it safe. So these are 5 ways that mobile devices are often hacked if it's lost or stolen. Again, you're attaching to an unsecure network. Maybe you download a bad app. Again, phishing. Phishing you'll hear throughout this presentation, and unaware users. And I'll come back to unaware users in a minute. So how to keep your device safe. So install the Find My Phone. You know, if it's an iPhone, it has it built in natively, but use the Find My Phone application that lets you, if you have lost it, that you can remotely lock it and erase data if you can't find it. Only download apps from the official app stores, and as John mentioned, even that can be a concern on the Android side. Read the fine print when allowing app permissions. Unfortunately, a lot of these apps share data with other companies. That's usually spelled out in the fine print of the user agreement that none of us reads, because who wants to read 10 pages of terms and conditions for Angry Birds? So John also talked about keeping your device updated. So that's a big one as well. Ideally, auto update, or when the update comes in, apply that update as quick as possible. So we talked, someone had posed a question about fingerprint and facial recognition. Again, that's a type of multi-factor authentication, so that's good. Delete sensitive data that's no longer needed on your device. So that applies to a phone or even your computer or the cloud. Anything that's no longer needed, get rid of it. Lock your phone with a strong PIN or password, and disable Wi-Fi and Bluetooth when not in use. I know that's inconvenience, but sometimes we're inconvenienced to be more secure. All right, social engineering. So social engineering is simply tricking you to provide confidential or personal data. So it sounds familiar, right? Similar to phishing. That's because phishing is a type of social engineering. So why does it affect you? Again, if the criminals get your login information, they can impersonate you for crimes or access your network to steal additional information, steal your identity. Hackers can access devices and files at your home, grabbing confidential data, also sending out spam from your devices. So now that you're part of the problem, and now I'm receiving spam from your computer and you may not even know it. And of course, if they gain access to your account, they can manage, transfer, and steal your information or assets, and you may not realize it until it's too late. So types of social engineering, again, we talked about phishing, piggyback or tailgating. So what this is that an attacker is physically watching you log into your laptop at a library or airport or some other public location. Basically, they're just watching you. It could also mean in a corporate environment or in your work environment. Maybe they're following you into a secure location. So, you know, we live in South Louisiana, and we're always trying to be friendly, helpful to our neighbors. So if somebody's walking into the building that we may have a card access to get into, it's a secure facility, we may hold a door open for somebody. We may not think to check that, hey, did they have a card? Should they have access? Now they have access to the building that may have access to, they may find access to data as well. Farming is when hackers recreate websites that look identical to the original website, but instead it's either containing malware or it's stealing information. So this is similar to the email example that I had thrown up, but it's now a website. Social media, like phishing, attackers will act like someone you know and try to obtain information through messages, get you to click malicious links. It's all about either getting, information or getting you to click something to hopefully infect your computer so that they can do more bad things later. So don't be a victim. Never share your login with someone else. That goes across the board, especially at work, because if you share that information with a coworker and they do something wrong, then guess who's going to be on the audit logs and who's going to get blamed for it. Confirm one's credentials before letting them into restricted areas. I just hit on that. Watch for clickbait situations. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. You know, mom and grandma always used to say that. Still holds true, even with the computer. So if you win, hey, you just won the lottery, or the prince comes back and now he has $10 million he wants to give you because inflation. Too good to be true, it's likely a fish. Log out of your accounts when finished. So whether you're logging into your email, maybe you have webmail through work or through home, and you're logging into your account at the library or some public device, make sure you log out of it completely so that the next person that comes and sits at that computer doesn't have access. If you're working at, say, a coffee shop or, again, the library or anywhere where there's free Wi-Fi, and you step away from your computer, make sure that it's not only logged off, but I would say shut down and with you, just to prevent somebody, again, from not stepping to your computer, plugging in a USB drive and infecting your computer, pulling it out in less than a minute. And now your computer's infected, possibly sharing your data with the bad guys. Banking. So your banking accounts are a major target for attackers. Monitor your accounts regularly. If your bank offers notifications for transactions, sign up for these. Also sign up for credit monitoring. Remember, if your bank is emailing you and asking for personal information, then it's probably not your bank. Call your bank to confirm. I'm going to leave this slide up before I get to it because this presentation, we put it together at the beginning of the year. And as I went through it today, I realized that we needed to update it. So one of the slides that we'll be adding is securing your home. So we're connecting more and more devices to our home network. First, it was our computers, then it was our phones, then our TVs, air conditions, doorbells, refrigerators, toasters, whatever. Everything seems to have Wi-Fi connectivity now. But what do we do to secure these devices? Are we changing the default passwords? Do we ever look, when was the last time that you did a security update on your refrigerator? Probably never. So these all become a major security concern. Manufacturers will allow Wi-Fi access. They build it into these systems, but they might not provide updates to keep these systems secure. And now they're insecure and it's a potential attack vector. Check to see if there's some way to update the code running on these devices. So usually you're going to find that in the user manual. Also, your home router or Wi-Fi is probably the single most important device to secure. If it's older than 3 years old, you probably should consider purchasing a new one that has the latest security features. If it's not that old, you should frequently check to see if there's any updates to the code that runs the device. You can usually do that in the admin page. Lastly, and the most important thing on any device, change the default password. So most devices now ship with a password that everyone on the internet knows. You can Google, I have a Linksys model, let's say ABC wireless router at home. I can Google that model and it'll tell me what the default admin password is. So these bad actors, they will drive around neighborhoods, park out front of someone's house when they determine that there's an open Wi-Fi, connect in, or if it's a Wi-Fi that has the default password, connect in, and now they have access to anything in your house. They can shut down your fridge if they wanted to, or turn the air condition off, which would be miserable for South Louisiana. But just joking about that. But it's a legit threat, and it's a simple thing that we can do right out the box. Change the default password, and that gives us a level of protection right there. So with that, I want to thank you. Throwing up a couple resources here. redstickready.com/cybersecurity is our website. Our redstickready.com website is all things emergency preparedness. So you can go there to see hurricane, tornado, flood, what to do in all those cases. We also building out the cybersecurity section of that site. CIsecurity.org. ConnectSafely.org is really good. It breaks it out into, it's very easy to consume content. They even have sections for seniors or children or just different things like that where they group information together. And then ready.gov/cybersecurity is another good one. So with that, being told that we have some questions. Any precautions regarding limits on the types of activities when using public free Wi-Fi, such as hospital, clinics, McDonald's? So unfortunately, no. So the way, and I didn't cover it here because it's a little bit more advanced, but something that we need to start looking into a little bit more is VPN service. So that's virtual private network. So what that does, even on a public network, if you connect to a public network and you establish a VPN connection, it's actually making a secure connection back to a trusted network. And so now you're able to browse the network, and everything that you do, even though that McDonald's or hospital's network is not secure, it secures the traffic. I don't really have a recommendation on that on the public side. That's something that I have to look into for future presentations. Here at the city, we have a VPN that we allow some users to use to securely connect back into our network. So whenever I'm on a public network and I'm on my work device, of course, I'm immediately using the VPN software to connect and secure that traffic. So again, look, I'm not going to say that I don't do it. I connect my phone if I need access in the airport or something. But it's just making everybody aware that there is a threat. Is it that the McDonald's network or the hospital network is not secure? Not really. But is it that someone else may be on there with you? That's a possibility. And then certainly the other threat is that, especially in large gathering places, someone could set up a fake Wi-Fi and you're connecting to it, again, as I mentioned, and now you're connecting there and that they have full access to your computer. I would definitely avoid financial transactions on these type of networks. Thank you, Ms. Cozy. So that is definitely the case. Usually when I'm connecting to a public Wi-Fi, it's just for if I need to get something quick off the internet, something to that effect. If I'm connecting to a public Wi-Fi for work purposes, I'm using the VPN to secure that traffic. I'm not going to share any of that data over a public Wi-Fi. So yes, definitely send in any more questions. As we wrap up, to close out, I'd like to introduce Clay Reeves, who is the director of our Mayor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness. Again, that's MOSEP. As previously mentioned, MOSEP is an agency that my team works closely with daily in many areas, but specifically in our cybersecurity efforts. Clay?
Thanks, Eric. Just like Eric had mentioned, our subject matter experts that we're on tonight, it's really our partnerships with Eric's department, the mayor's office, our public safety partners, and many other stakeholders that really is essential to how we prepare and how we really are aware of what's going on by communicating with each other. So while MOSEP, where I work, a critical resource for planning and responding to threats for our city parish governments, our office mission is broadly focused on preparing for and responding to threats. Each year we do we look at our risk, just so we've been talking about tonight. So we do a threat hazard identification risk assessment. Cyber is always high on that. We look at all hazards, whole community. So looking at all these different things is unlike events like today, and why they're so important, because it promotes not only our public education, but our awareness. So if we don't understand our risk and we're not aware of those, sometimes it's very easy to fall prey to a bad actor. So Red Stick Ready, those sites are in the chat box. We try to stay Red Stick Ready as the logo is what we use here in Baton Rouge for all our really safety measures. We send stuff out daily. So and really the digital safety of our residents we serve has become just as important in many ways as our physical security. So we can all do our part to be cyber smart and cyber ready. You heard a lot of good tips from the subject matter experts tonight. And always be vigilant when it comes to cybersecurity. Take a couple more steps to be secure, but protecting your private information is extremely important, because once you lose that, you don't know where it goes. It's not like our physical security, where someone normally will leave some types of evidence. Cyber bad actors and cyber criminals normally erase their tracks. So we really want to be have our due diligence when we look at that. So we encourage everyone again to follow Red Stick Ready on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, where we share useful tips on a daily basis. And especially with October's National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, we're really pushing, like this presentation tonight, the cybersecurity aspect of what we do in the city parish. Also, for additional cybersecurity preparedness tips, you have the resources, redstickready.com/cybersecurity. We also have brla.gov/cybersecurity. So if you go onto any one of our websites, you'll be able to find a lot of information, what you saw tonight. And again, those slides, we're going to attempt to get those out to you, so you'll have that as a resource as well. But really, I just want to be brief. I want to thank everyone for attending. You've done the first step, that is actually listening and understanding again your risk, understanding the threats and the hazards that do exist, and being aware of those. So cybersecurity is extremely important, and we hope everybody learned some valuable information tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Clay. So just to wrap up, I want to thank everyone for attending. It's a good showing tonight. We hope to have more of these in the future. So I don't even know that I mentioned, but October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So we're definitely going to have something at least once a year. As Clay mentioned, and the mayor mentioned, we had a big cybersecurity symposium actually made up of municipalities from across the state that was well attended this morning. Everybody seems to be engaged. Everybody's hearing it on the news at night. If it's a municipality or a hospital or a school system that got hacked, it's all, it's starting to hit close to home. So I think everybody's seeing the importance of it. I want to remind everyone that when we close the meeting, you'll be presented with a survey. Please fill that out for us. It's only like 5 or 6 quick questions. Let us know honestly how we did, what we can do better for the next presentation. And if you're interested in us hosting a presentation for an organization or a group, please email is@brla.gov. Again, that's is@brla.gov. We can do cybersecurity presentations. We have some presentations on some of the the transparency initiatives we have, some of the technology, public-facing technology we have. So welcome to share all of that with y'all, and hope that y'all found this this presentation useful and informative. Thank you, and please stay safe, everyone.